Welcome to the Beyond Atheism podcast with me, Nathan Alexander, and my co-host, Todd Tavares. Moving beyond questions of God's existence, this podcast asks what atheists should be doing next in a godless world.
So I think it must have been 2 years ago when it was on Ash Wednesday, and I was walking up Broadway and noticed a lot of people had ashes on their head.
Right.
And I stopped at a Dunkin' Donuts, and it's great because it's just a little window right out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And and you walk up and you give them your order, and you go to the next window, and they give you your coffee and donuts. And I realized that right next door to the Dunkin' Donuts was a little Catholic church, and people were just like walking up, and they had like a little window where the priest would like put the ashes on the forehead, and then the next person would come. It was exactly like Dunkin' Donuts. It was this great takeout
Yes.
takeout ashing,
Right.
which I'd never seen. I couldn't even imagine that you would do it that way, because I've only ever seen it as like you have to go to a big full mass.
Right.
So and that's kind of why I guess like that's the thing I remembered when someone mentioned to me last week, oh, what are you giving up for Lent? And I was like, huh? And they're like, oh, it's Ash Wednesday. And to me, the biggest surprise of that was that it was Wednesday. That was the most
Right.
shocking
Yes.
thing. Because I haven't done anything for that since, I guess, like I'm still in Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely this, like, it's weird because I don't like there's definitely this moral content in the terms of being like performative aspect, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have to
Yes.
do this to be a good Catholic, and you're showing everyone you're a good Catholic. And you have to, like, and sacrifice is a big part of meaning, right? There's a morality to that. But we also, like, we had really like cafeteria Catholicism. I don't know if are you familiar with that one? Is that part of like what your morality as a believer was? Did you have any of that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I was raised Anglican, and we never had, as far as I remember, like the ashes like on the forehead for Ash Wednesday. Although I definitely remember like having pancakes on Tuesday, but not.
Is that a thing? Wait. Is it
Yeah.
Pancake Tuesday and then Ash Wednesday?
Yeah.
I feel totally cheated.
Wow. You really missed out.
Yeah.
Yes. Geez, that's the
Well,
whole I mean, that's like Mardi Gras, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's like Fat Tuesday.
Mm.
What do you do or what did you do on the Tuesday then? Anything or?
Oh, Mardi Gras. As a 8-year-old. No, nothing.
Yes.
I can't think of anything.
Interesting. No, because I mean, that's supposed to be the day where you kind of let yourself go before you give something up for Lent.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it's become associated with pancakes, or at least
That's
how it
wild.
was in the Anglican Church. But I think some people just call it Pancake Tuesday.
Pancake Tuesday. And to
Yeah,
think all of California has Taco Tuesday, and you one day a year get Pancake Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah. But that's yes. Speaking of like a cafeteria, but
yeah, right. Very literal.
Yeah, I mean, I was when I was in church, I was like, less than 13 or whatever. So
Yeah.
I don't know if Lent was really a big thing for giving stuff up. But
I think that's just a Catholic thing, and it's not. I mean, it's different from sort of like what you need to believe and what you need to do, which is very. I mean, like there you can go through a list of things, but one of the things we had is like when I talk about cafeteria Catholicism, that's you kind of get to like pick and choose your morality, like you're in a lunchroom where it's things like of course, like abortion is murder, murder is wrong, like rape is horrible, premarital sex. God will understand that one, right? masturbation, that's not so big a deal. That's okay.
Hmm.
So did you have like a rigidly defined morality in Anglicanism?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe my Sunday school teachers would disagree, but I don't.
Mhm.
I mean, I suppose there was moral values and things that were taught, but I guess it's not so doctrinal, perhaps, as Catholics. I mean, it wasn't like we. I mean, I definitely like when I was, whatever, like a kid, I didn't know what abortion was or something like that.
Yeah,
So obviously
yeah,
that was didn't matter
right.
to me. I mean, like there were things like about being a good person and so on, I guess, that were taught, but maybe we already got that anyway, like from somewhere else. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, this is the big thing is like where, yeah, what are the sources of morality? And that idea
Hmm.
of like, does it really come from Christianity? 'Cause that's the argument we get a lot in the U.S., right? That there's this kind
Hmm.
of BS notion that the U.S. is a Judeo-Christian country. It's founded from Christian rules and laws, and they've been secularized. And what we're kind of forced to deal with is if we as atheists get rid of this moral underpinning, what are we kind of
Hmm.
left with? And this
Yeah.
is like we can't. Yeah, I mean, you and I are not going to make a definitive list of right and wrong, like the true atheist morality. But the thing that we need to point out is that it's a social construction, and it's always been a social construction, and this sort of universal morality that religion promotes is just it's a total false narrative. But I mean, like it sticks with people, right? What was that Dostoevsky
Hmm.
thing?
Yeah. I mean, I think the book is the brothers Karamazov. I really maybe I should have looked that up.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
actually, I don't know if you've read that book. Like, I remember I tried to read it a couple of years ago, and I eventually gave up before I got to this famous quote. But
It's a big
uh,
one.
yeah, I should. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
I'll go back to it someday. But anyway, there's this famous quote. One of them says is something along the lines of, "If God didn't exist, then everything is permitted."
yeah.
So, what do you think about that quote? I mean, do you think that's true or?
Yeah, that's basically true.
Yeah.
No, of course not. I mean, it's weird to think about where that would come from. Here's the horrible thing though. I think people believe that, right? Like there's almost
Yeah.
like a moral policeman in their head.
Hmm.
And what's worse is that they believe it of other people. So I
Yeah.
think the numbers on it are something like 50% of Americans think you need to believe in God to be a good person.
Mm. Right. Right.
And that, I mean, that's pretty galling that that's how they imagine other people.
Hmm.
Which is, for me, this is kind of terrifying. I think it was Voltaire had another one, right? Like, if God didn't exist,
Right.
he would need to be invented.
Yeah. Right. Right.
The anarchist Kropotkin sort of inverted and said if God were real, he'd need to be destroyed. These are
Right.
it's all wonderful wordplay, but yeah, they doesn't God really allow you to do lots of things though? Really terrible things?
Yeah. I think we can sort of, or someone could invert the argument and just say that if God did exist and you believed you were on his side, then that would justify whatever. I think it's, yeah. I mean, it's sort of a classic argument. Like, are things good because they're just like intrinsically good, or they're good because God says they're good?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think, yeah, I mean, maybe it's too,
Well, wait, tell me
yeah.
more about that. Are there things that are intrinsically good, or is that like the play that is that the
Uh,
that there aren't things that are intrinsically good? It's God that gives it goodness.
yeah, I think it's the things like if God commanded, say, just to say for argument, like if God commanded someone to murder someone
Mm,
and said like, yes, this is moral to do it, then if it's just a matter of like what like morality is just whatever God says, then
Mm,
in that case it would be moral to kill that person. I mean, if you believe that argument. Whereas like so but basically like, like the 10 commandments or something like that, those are like it's moral to kill someone because or sorry, it's moral not to kill someone because God has commanded you not to kill someone.
right. Following the
Um
commandments.
yeah, so but like if he hadn't made that commandment, then how would you know whether it's moral or not to kill someone?
Right, right. So it's like the God is like the stamp of approval. If you get a rule
Yes.
and
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
it
Yeah.
starts with God says, then it becomes a sort of universal rule.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't know. I mean, I guess we need to try and be fair, I suppose, to our like to Christian theologians. I mean,
Mhm.
and not sort of misrepresent their positions. I mean, I don't necessarily think that all of them would agree with that necessarily. I mean, I think it's like the divine command theory. I think that's what it's called.
Mm, mm.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, without without that basis for our morality, atheists need to sort of start from scratch. I do you think
I
for
wouldn't
morality?
I wouldn't go that far because
Hmm.
so I mean it's like I think part of it is this deconstructing of religious morality. It's so sneaky, right? And it's like that we can't tell, is it good because God said it, or is it, did God say it because it's good, right? Like
Hmm.
if you can't make this distinction, these
Right.
ideas that, and okay, because it's not really what we want to talk about, but you're right, we do need to be fair to it. This idea that what's right is right and it's always right comes
Hmm.
from God. What's wrong
Yeah.
is wrong and it's always wrong, and we know because of God. And that is unchanging across time and place and circumstance. It's always true. There's a universal morality, right? It
Hmm.
applies to everyone equally, anywhere they are. That's one view of morality. And
Hmm.
for atheists, we are immediately once we cut out God, we're stuck with the Dostoevsky quote, which is like, okay, then what's permitted? And this is when it
Hmm.
becomes. This is when like we have to do something as atheists and really like work this out, where it comes from and whatnot. And I mean, the thing that we immediately see is that we know it's not this sort of Christian morality. It isn't, religious morality in general isn't universal.
Hmm.
And one of my favorite examples I found was I was visiting a mosque and they had a lot of little pamphlets outside, and one of them was I think it was marriage and oh, it was it must have been sex in Islam because
Hmm.
it caught my eye, and one of the
Your eye were
it
just
worked like
drawn to
that.
sex.
Yeah, it totally worked. But
Yeah.
one of the in the little pamphlets, one of the things it presented was that in Islam, if a husband does not provide sexual pleasure to his wife, the woman can divorce him.
Hmm.
Like
Right.
it's
Interesting.
grounds for divorce.
Hmm.
That's amazing. Is that part of a universal morality that's embraced by all of the Abrahamic faiths? Like
I I don't think so.
I don't think so either, right? So clearly
Yeah.
there is differentiation. And
Hmm.
there's differentiation across sects, there's across belief systems, and the
Hmm.
more different the religion and the more different it's going to be, even though they like to focus on this universality. And the
Hmm.
reason it's it's not is because it's a construct, because it is
Hmm.
moral relativism. But
Hmm.
this moral relativism is not what religious authorities impose upon people. I don't know, have you ever heard arguments against moral relativism? Or like,
Yeah.
what?
I mean,
I mean,
oh
this is. I'm sorry.
no,
Tell me about moral relativism or places you've ran into it.
no. I mean, I think moral relativism is sort of the like the Dostoevsky quote, just that anything is permitted. Like we don't know if murder is bad or not. Someone could say it's bad. Some could say it's good, and like there would be no way of determining which is correct.
Mm,
And I think that's one view of moral relativism. But I don't know like what your thought is, but actually I think like maybe religious people would say about atheists that they're moral relativists. I might say like yes and no. Like
Yeah,
in a way, we're not atheists in the or sorry, we're not moral relativists in the sense of like we have no way of knowing whether
yeah,
murder is good or bad. But I think we're moral relativists in the sense that we recognize like morality is sort of socially constructed
yeah.
and can vary from place to place and so on. Do you think
Totally.
that's right?
Well, yeah, I think like in a very descriptive way, right? Like we have to start with that understanding that like it's made up, that
Hmm.
it's always been made up. If you start with an atheist position and you say God does not exist, as
Hmm.
soon as you say morality comes from God, there's a problem, right? It didn't come from God. It came from the person who read the book, who wrote the book, right? Like that's it, or
Hmm.
what they heard.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the thing I've heard in the religious context is moral relativism is when individuals get to just change whatever. Like, okay, this is wrong. One day homosexuality is wrong. You know what? I changed my mind. Today it's fine. This
Hmm.
idea that you get to choose every day and you can flip flop what's right and wrong, which is something that religions do all the time as well. I mean, a recent case was when Pope Francis said that if you need to get a flu vaccine shot, and that shot was made from fetal tissue that came from an
Hmm.
abortion, it's
Hmm.
okay,
Right,
right?
right.
So that's not this. It's not universal. It's not always applicable. Okay, there are cases where it becomes exceptional, and it's also like moral relativism in terms of like even inside the United States, right? I live in a place where it's the death penalty is illegal, which by
Right,
the way,
right.
very Christians have a lot of opinions about that. I
Yes,
live in a
yeah.
place that's very secular. We
Hmm.
don't have the death penalty. You go to a place like Texas, where it's very religious, where the death penalty is very strong.
Hmm.
Like, how is this justified? This is the thing. There's always some justification, not some
Yeah.
universal moral application.
Hmm. But it isn't the Catholic Church's position on the death penalty is that they oppose it in all cases, I think, right?
I believe so. I'm going to
Right.
assume they do.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, it seems that in the U.S., like maybe like it's yeah, the more religious states
Yeah.
are more likely to have the death penalty on the books still.
Of
Yeah,
course, it just makes
yeah,
sense. But
yeah.
but this is one of the points about what moral relativism is, which is that it's a social construct. It
Hmm.
it's not this divine inspiration that creates our moral rules. They change place to place, they change time to time. It's shaped by our society and our community and everyone around us. History, the past, the present, and the future all have this influence on what we think of as this universal morality. So when we strip away God, right, and suddenly everything's permitted, but clearly it's not. Um,
Hmm.
well, I mean, I guess this is a place to start. Like, do you think are humans moral animals, Nathan?
I guess we could take it a different way, is to say like, is a gorilla or something a moral animal? And what makes like an something moral? I mean, I guess there's something about like being able to reflect on. I would say yes, I guess, but I think
Mm,
I think the reasons why is like we can sort of reflect on how our actions might hurt someone, or we have like sort of forethought for that kind of thing that
yeah.
that sort of transcends like our immediate needs of like eating or whatever. Whereas even like a fairly advanced mammal may not. I mean, so it's like you wouldn't say a lion is being immoral for like for
Oh,
catching a zebra or something like that.
no way.
Uh,
I have a
uh,
cat.
uh,
She is amoral as hell. She is
right,
completely amoral. Yeah.
right. Yes. Whereas, so I mean, yeah, you don't, you can't really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Criticize the cat when it does something,
No, no,
something
can't
that
say you should have known better than to
yes,
do that. Yeah,
yes. And
that's
so I think
impossible.
yeah, I don't know, like, I think just sort of tentatively thinking about it, like, I think that might be something that makes us, capable of morality. I mean, what do you think?
Well, yeah, one of the things you brought up in there is the social aspect, right? And
Mhm,
definitely like these notions going back to, Aristotle of humans as, political animals. It's got to
mhm,
be one of like the first human acts, right? You make a society, you start to make the rules.
mhm.
I mean, if you get together and play a board game with friends, it's the first thing you do. What's right and what's wrong, and how do we deal with it?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, definitely in that we seem to be more moral animals. I think Steven Pinker writes a lot about this. He sees humans as being not tabula rasa in the sense that like everything is permitted, right? Not in that sense
Mhm,
of in Dostoevsky's sense, but tabula rasa as in what the like you have this blank slate for what the morality may be.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
humans are going to develop a right and wrong. It's going to be within certain parameters. You can learn
Yeah,
it in all these. You can learn all these different nuances and all these different rules, but you're going to have a sense of what's right and wrong.
yeah.
I mean, like you can,
Yeah.
because you can have a warrior culture that says killing is good, right?
Right, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But actually now now that you've said that, I might revise like my earlier comment about like the gorillas and so on because I think like any sort of social animals
Mm,
that live in groups like they do have rules that kind of allow them to function like as a social group
mm,
like
mm-hmm,
they have certain ways of regulating like what is wrong and so on but I mean
hmm.
obviously I don't think like a gorilla or something is thinking consciously like should I do a right like if I did this would I be doing a right or wrong but nonetheless I think
Yeah.
it's like there are things that these animals do or don't do that are sort of socially I don't know if it could be instinctual or whatever I'm not sure exactly but
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, one thing I'd wonder is like what the punishment is for it.
yeah, I think with well, I mean this could, maybe this is getting way too far outside my own like knowledge, but I think like I don't know, in primate like species they could sort of I don't know, ostracize certain individuals or
Mm,
whatever. I'm not sure
right.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. But and I mean another thing is like obviously humans don't just I mean we're evolved animals, so it's not like at some point we just sort of snap into being humans and we
Yeah.
then we begin thinking about morality. I mean, obviously, like our morality is somewhat based on the morality of ape ancestors.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
something else to bring up, maybe.
No, I think there's a good point in there too, where like it might almost develop subconsciously, right? Just as part of
Mm,
how a society functions, where if
right.
you're going to have the social solidarity that's necessary to produce a society of a group of people bigger than
Hmm.
X,
Hmm.
then like it's essential that you have this behavior, and it's probably a behavior that we see in every social group around the world,
Hmm.
which gives it this sense of like the universal morality. Of course, killing
Yeah.
part of the in group is wrong,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But that is but even with that, if we think about those rules, if we do look out and look at rules that every society has, things like, I I just drew a complete blank on the 10 commandments. But I guess the big rules for everything are like murder is
Yeah.
universal, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, like unjustified killing, although I guess
there we go, right?
the,
It's
the
not
just
universal. Yeah.
the justification thing is what maybe varies, I suppose. I mean, I guess you could say like killing a completely innocent person randomly is pretty much a universal taboo. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I,
right. That
I
would
mean,
be.
not in
I mean, it's well qualified. Well,
yeah.
was
Yeah.
he innocent? Was it
Yeah,
completely
that's the thing.
random?
That's the
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, that's the
yeah.
thing.
But that
Yeah.
idea, like, you don't. There are times when killing is completely inappropriate.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
like even this idea of a bound morality, right? This is great. We're just running today. Like
Mhm.
we have this morality. Okay, it's universal. We found one that's universal. No
Mhm.
killing, and then we immediately realize that it's bound, right? Well, were they innocent? Was this completely
Mhm.
random? Like,
Yeah, like was it in warfare or even like even it's like is it a member of an out group or something like that?
yeah, totally, totally. I think that's one. Is like it's weird because I think this happens in the Bible where like they come up with they get the Ten Commandments, and then somebody
Mhm.
works on the Sabbath day, and they're like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
we need to stone them, but we can't do it today. We have to wait until the next day.
Right.
But like, weren't you just told not to kill them? But so there's immediately these. Okay, there's a bound
uh
when. Okay, are they the
yeah.
out group? Are they guilty of something?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Right. And this is where we have tons of. And actually, if you look at like our political discussions now over these, things that we're told,
Mhm.
universal morality. It's always right. It's always wrong. It's where the debates kind of happen on these boundaries, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
right.
right.
We can. Okay, so is the death penalty appropriate? Is this war appropriate? In the U.S., a big thing is
Mhm.
like police power. Do the police
Mhm.
have the right to kill? Who do they have the right to kill? When is it appropriate?
Mhm.
So it's not. It's very, very clearly not a universal morality, right? So if you
Yeah.
anybody listening, if you're confronted with this,
Mhm.
it's very clearly not a universal morality. It's constructed at some point by someone. It's
Mhm.
bounded in these ways, and we push the limits in one direction or the other about what's appropriate. In one case, you might find people who or a country or a culture that allows abortion. Another place you might
Mhm.
find a place that doesn't even allow contraceptive devices. But
Mhm.
they're just sort of moving the boundary of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um
that's
yeah.
weird.
I think there might be kind of a distinction between sort of our intuitions about what's moral and what we can kind of reason about.
Mm,
I don't know if that makes sense. Like there's sort of an intuition we have about doing violence against someone.
mm,
Maybe we like there's a natural recoil against that,
yeah.
perhaps. But then like although I mean I suppose there's also an instinct towards doing violence as well. But there's
Mm,
something like obviously our morality is not purely just instinct. Like we can reason about what's good or bad beyond
yeah.
just our kind of emotions.
Well, there is actually that reminded me of something. One of the ways we one of the reasons we oppose things and we find them wrong
Mhm.
is disgust.
Right, right.
So ideas of even it can be like food politics, it can be sexual politics,
Mhm.
it can be aesthetic things. That
Mhm.
disgust is really, really powerful. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's not always reason,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I think there was some experiments about conservatives versus liberal or left wing people, and
Mm,
it seems like I don't know if you've heard of this, but basically, like I think they were showing like the experimenters were showing, say, a picture of like something really disgusting, like a bunch of worms
mm,
or whatever, or like
yeah.
someone like eating like a piece of poo or something like that,
Oh, yeah.
and like then they judge the person's kind of disgust reaction to it, and it
Mm,
seems that if I remember right that the conservatives had a much higher sort of disgust towards these things
mm,
than like the liberals or left leaning
mm,
people.
mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm totally representing that right, but I think yeah, but anyway, I think the point definitely is that like yeah, there's just sort of this disgust factor which informs what people think is moral or not.
Right? Totally. I can
Yeah.
see that.
And
Yeah.
that sort of transcends like rationality because I think in that same experiment there were other things that weren't there weren't like explicitly disgusting like some worms or something like that. I think it was
Yeah.
more just like doing very unconventional things, like
Yeah.
I don't know, like putting ketchup on like a chocolate bar or something like that.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
is like
Wrong.
there's no rational reason like you shouldn't do that,
Totally.
but there was like a stronger reaction of disgust
Yeah.
among the conservatives, if I remember reading that correctly.
Wow. But that makes sense that that can be a source, right? That
Mm,
it's socially constructed. And oddly,
yeah.
that and this is great because it's getting into story time. But we're like, it's another pillar of morality, which is showing that like it's always there, right? It's there are these other sources of it. It's not from God. It's okay. It's possible for us to do it socially. We do it as a society. And this is a weird one that I've always had in my head. When I first moved out to Seattle, was still driving. I went to a midnight showing um, of a zombie movie. I think it was Land
Hmm.
of the Dead.
Okay.
So, and then I left the theater. I'm driving home. It's 2 in the morning, and it's raining. I know it's shocking in Seattle. It's raining.
Yeah.
It's really raining. But for me, it was really weird because I was at an intersection waiting to turn left, and across the street on the left side, where I'm going to turn, is a guy waiting to cross the street
Mm.
in the rain with no umbrella. And like, so because Seattle has really stringent laws on jaywalking,
Ah, right.
right? And it's almost mythical. You'll hear people speak about it in hushed tones, like, I heard so and so got caught downtown and it was a $77 ticket. And they'll be like, oh my goodness, no, my neighbor's uncle got a ticket when he
Mm.
was, he was up in Roosevelt and it was $112. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. It's almost like a legend,
Yeah.
but it gets inside you, and people don't jaywalk, right? So
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
2 in
Hmm.
the morning, and this is an alien culture to me, and this
Yeah.
guy really, like, I just watched a zombie movie, and here we are in the middle of the
Yes.
night in the rain. There's a guy standing there kinda, like, pacing to himself to stay warm, and all I'm thinking is, like, "Why don't you just cross and why don't you just cross the street? Because I know exactly what's gonna happen. The light's gonna turn, he's gonna get the walk, I'm
Yes.
gonna turn left, and he's gonna walk out, and we're both gonna stop. It's idiotic, and I can see it
Yeah.
coming a mile away, right?
Yeah. Right.
And of course, that's exactly what happens. And
Hmm.
I'm driving away thinking like, "What an idiot. Why didn't he just walk?" And then
Yeah.
the follow-up to me in my head is like, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I just drive? There were no other cars. There's no one
Yeah.
around.
Right.
There's no police.
That's true. Yeah.
And like when like it's very like we can rationalize things, especially like I mean stoplights. They're totally rational.
Hmm.
Almost all of the time, there are perfect reasons for following them. They're great. We need to coordinate traffic. We can't all go at once. It's
Hmm.
like there's reasons why we do it this way. There's reasons why they have a jaywalking law, which is totally foreign to me. But this is we both had this ingrained in us to the point where it was functioning almost the way like something moral would. I can't
Hmm.
go against the light because it's wrong to do that.
Yeah.
There's no threat of police. It's
Hmm.
middle you can see them. There's no one around.
Yeah.
There's no threat to like your reputation. There's no threat to I mean there's a threat if you stay there. He's standing in the rain. So like this is to me this is a case where we have the laws are shaping the way we think about right and wrong, about
Yeah.
what's
That's
good
true.
to
That's
do
true.
and what's wrong to do.
Yeah. That's true. I've got a competing anecdote.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I mean, it's similar, just that like a couple or whatever, 2 years or whatever, I lived in Germany, and it's the same thing there that people are they wait patiently
Mm,
at the light before crossing. But it's interesting because that's enforced. I mean, I guess you could get a ticket too, but if someone sees you crossing without the light, like I think
mm,
they'll sort of tell you off. So it's sort of interesting too, because in that way it's like, it's
Yeah.
socially enforced as well, even maybe beyond what, the police need to do. And it's something that it doesn't make any sense really. Like if you can see pretty clearly there's no cars coming, like,
Yeah.
but I think it's a weird thing because it's like probably the people who are waiting there at the traffic light and they see someone walking across,
Mm.
they get angry because maybe they realize that it's silly for them to be waiting as well, and like they see
Hmm.
this person ignoring the law, even
Yeah.
though
Yep.
I don't know. It
No,
is funny, yeah.
I'm gonna go stronger. It's a moral wrong. It's morally bad at that point.
You
That's what
mean the law itself, not to walk?
No, not if you cross against the light, it's
Uh huh.
morally bad.
Oh, okay.
That's the position I think on this because it's a norm, right? It's
Hmm.
this is which is what morality is, right? It's the power of the norm is that you start to police yourself.
Yeah.
That's the amazing thing.
But I think that that's sort of a kind of an argument like based on tradition or something. It's like, well, we should follow this because we've always followed it, and there might not be any good reason, but that's just the way we do things. And I mean,
Totally.
I think the question of like of authority and who decides what should be moral. I mean, obviously, like there is like it's not a perfect thing between like what's legal and what's moral, but anyway, like it's who has the authority to decide these things. And I mean, I think we should reject like tradition as a source of authority, just like we would reject the same kind of argument like it's moral or whatever because God wills it. Like it's
Mm,
similar kind of reason to reject it.
yeah. Wait, are you saying that? Let's go back to it. That God doesn't exist, and that for you, Nathan Alexander, everything is permitted.
Yes and no. Mean, I mean, I don't think. I mean, in a sense that like everything is permitted. That
Yeah.
obviously obviously there's still many things that I would argue for being immoral or moral. But I think it's like they're permitted in the sense that we can argue about them and we can make the rules beyond what God would say or any kind
Yeah.
of traditional kind of authority would say.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's key for like the sort of atheist position, right? It's
Mm,
that it's not like anything's permitted. It's not we're gonna make it up. I'm gonna make it up for myself. We're gonna make up
mhm,
the rules as we go, or that there's this need to completely throw out the religious tradition or the tradition that we've inherited. More importantly,
mhm,
because yeah, maybe yeah, I guess the religious tradition is probably being thrown out, but it rejects religious authority, or at least religious authority's ability to dictate that. Because I
mhm.
think, unlike you, I think there. I mean, it'd be ridiculous to make an argument that history doesn't matter. That
Yeah.
modern
Oh,
liberal secular societies haven't inherited
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
a part of the morality, but it's just that we don't need to respect religious authorities' rights to dictate it, right?
Hmm.
A priest telling me that I can't use contraception is insane. Why should
Hmm.
I respect that person's authority? All right.
Hmm.
Why would or even like contemporary issues like I mean just to be fun and for hot takes
Hmm.
like thinking about adultery in terms of polyamory.
Right. Right.
Like why would you talk to we there's no need to talk to a religious authority at all.
Yeah.
That's something that ought to be disregarded. Again,
Hmm.
like at the boundaries when we get these new questions, right? If we're sort of to push adultery that way, right?
Hmm.
There's an old like there are reasons of disgust, of moral outrage,
Yeah. Yeah.
religious tradition. All of these tell us adultery is wrong.
Hmm.
But even that, I mean, it's moved over time, right? We're now, I think, the most, let's say, progressive, liberal, Western. religious morality, I think, sort of accepts ideas of serial monogamy, right? Like you date many people before you get married.
Right, right.
So that's updated according to it. And then, when you get to these newer things, that religious tradition isn't completely disregarded, it's just built upon what we've already inherited.
Yeah,
And we just disregard religious authorities' right to impose their morality upon us.
hmm I mean, sometimes I guess religious people say about atheists, like, well, you're just using religious morality, but you're just not admitting it. But I think it's
Right.
like, I think it's probably true, of course, that we draw from
Mm,
whatever centuries and millennia of like religious traditions, but we pick and choose like what we find makes sense or whatever. I mean, it would be very difficult, I think, to sort of build a new morality completely from scratch. Like, obviously, we build upon
right.
past traditions, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the morality that we all, I think, inherit,
Hmm.
the morality that's been socially constructed by people who have religious views. I'm
Hmm.
sure there's some of that has even gone into like the concept of gay marriage, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, that move from the social acceptance of homosexuality
Hmm.
to acceptance and even promotion of homosexual marriage.
Yeah.
It probably comes from people who've thought about it, the morality in a religious context.
Hmm.
What we've said is that we know all morality is socially constructed. We're rejecting religious authorities' rights to dictate it to us. That's key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's sort of moving into kind of a practical area. I think that's an important point. Like, we don't want religious ideas of morality trumping sort of secular laws or impacting them,
Mm,
uh,
right.
which, yeah, which is like quite a big problem in various countries. I mean,
Yeah.
more so in others, and in some countries, like, it's an absolute like one-to-one thing of like what's religiously moral and what's legal and so on.
Right. Yeah.
um
Being
yeah.
theocratic
Right.
states that,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't make a distinction between morality and law, or
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. Um, I mean, the big thing now, Nathan, do you think we've done it? Have we solved the problem?
I think we've made some good headway, at least. Yeah.
What do you think? What's the key takeaway here? We should probably have started with a key takeaway, or at least like
But
a clear target.
the thing is that I don't think we knew what the key takeaway is going into it.
Great point. Great.
um,
Yeah.
and what's that's just, I mean, that's a good thing. What's a key takeaway? I mean, I'm gonna push it back on you, Todd. What what do you think is the key
You
key
sneak.
takeaway?
All right.
It's
Well, okay.
yeah, yeah.
One key takeaway is anytime someone asks you a question and you want more time to think, you should say, "That's a very good question." The another good
And then
an
deflect.
then deflect. The other thing you should do, this is true with journalism. Anytime you're
Mhm.
talking to a journalist, never answer the question they ask.
Right.
Always answer the question you wish they asked.
Yes. Right.
That's the key there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're dealing with. Yeah, I think we did solve the problem, Nathan. I think we
Okay.
totally did it. No. This is I think there is a sort of, not so much a blind spot, but as like a there's a danger for atheists who who might be confronted with something like this. If, people who are just coming out as atheists, people who are getting,
Hmm.
you know, uh, cornered and henpecked about stuff like this,
Hmm.
that yes, humans are moral animals. No morality is universal. No morality is absolute.
Hmm.
All morality is at some point socially constructed. All nuns are doing is rejecting religious authorities as a source for morality. We recognize that it comes from the culture,
Mhm.
history, the people around us. We know that it changes over time. We know that our behavior influences it. How we interact with other people influences norms of
Mhm.
behavior. How other
Mhm.
people treat us influence it. Um, and what we see as atheists are it's we are liberated from being dictated a morality to us, saying no,
Mhm.
you're not allowed to marry, you're not allowed to behave this way, you're not allowed to think these thoughts. It doesn't mean you can do anything you want. It just
Mhm.
means that these people don't decide for you.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
that's
Yeah.
the important thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm very curious as to like what now. I think the next thing is like what is there an atheist morality
Yeah.
already, right? Are there things that we all have in common
Mm.
that a mode of behavior that we think is im- is right? That's I'd love to know
Mhm.
more about this. All right, we got to pencil that
Yeah.
in for a
Yeah,
future.
no, I think that's really an interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we did it. We found an interesting question.
Yes.
Yeah. No
Yes.
answers. Interesting questions. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's the first thing to do is to try and come up with interesting questions first. I think that's the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. They made this is it's a project of exploration. We're into the
Yes.
unknown. Yeah. And I mean the great thing is that one thing that we know is that like we have the power to construct the future that we want. And that's powerful.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Any other
Mhm.
anecdotes, Nathan?
No. Not off the top of my head, no. No.
No acts of wanton immorality that you want to share with everyone?
No, not on a public forum, no.
All
Yes.
right.
I
Hey,
mean, I guess the correct answer is like, no, I've never committed any wanton acts of immorality.
yes,
I mean,
that's the correct
I'll
answer.
I'll edit that in to make that my original answer.
Okay, of course, perfect. Um,
Yeah.
and if people do take umbrage with your wanton acts of immorality, they can find you on Twitter, right?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
you can
What's your handle?
my Twitter handle is Nath G Alexander at Nath G Alexander.
At Nate G.
Um,
Alexander.
yes, and you're not on Twitter,
I'm not on Twitter. I'm on
but
Facebook, but I don't use it.
right,
It's I'm like the hermit of the internet. It's really terrible.
yeah, no, it's yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Um,
but you have a Medium
I
page,
I have a Medium page that I think that'll be linked. Is that going to be on the Encore page?
yeah, Anchor, yes,
Yeah. Yeah. That's just Todd Stroke. Or Todd
right,
hyphen
Todd,
Tavares
yeah, hyphen, yes.
hyphen medium.com. Anything else we need to plug?
Let me find. Oh, there's this secular community survey that we have been mentioning,
Oh
and
God, I hope they have questions about morality.
yes, that would be very, yeah.
Perfect.
So this is a survey that's for people in the US who are in a secular community.
Mm,
And I'll put the link in the description. And then if you want to get involved in that, please do because yeah, it's provides us more information about secular people. And
fantastic. Big thanks to Red Japan for the music, for the
yes,
intro.
right. Yeah, I guess
Ripping
we
track.
should say that is Todd's band who
You
plays
don't
the
need to say that, but yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And I guess the only other thing to say is I guess it depends how you're listening to the podcast. I guess it's possible to subscribe somehow. Um, if it is, then please
Sure.
do that.
Yep. Like,
And like
subscribe,
it. Yes.
ring the bell, sign up for
Ring the bell.
notifications, tell
Yeah.
your mom. And I think
Yes.
that's really how
Anything.
this spreads.
Yeah. I really wonder, like, I don't know if ringing the bell is possible for podcasts, or I'm not even sure what that means exactly, but
No, it's
is
like
something on
little
YouTube or?
Yeah, little
Okay.
kids say this as goodbye now because they don't know the
Right.
difference. They're being raised
Right.
raised
Like
by
and
YouTube.
subscribe and ring the bell. Yeah.
Let's go ring the bell. See you next week,
Yes.
Grandma. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
fantastic.
right. So do all of those things,
Yeah,
if you it's the moral thing to do.
the moral thing to do. We'll see you next time.
Yes. Bye-bye.